Hi guys, again. It's Erin, Book Lioness, and I just wanted to do another video to kind of give you a little bit of background. I had a couple of questions asked, why Book Lioness, and what brought me to tarot. So I thought I would do a video and kind of do a hopefully brief explanation on that, give you a little background, and that way you get to know me a little better and where I'm coming from in future videos. So first, have my tea here. Why Book Lioness? I am a ferocious reader. Times gone by, I used to read all the time. I would have a book in the kitchen, I'd have a book in the car, a book at work for lunch breaks, and a book, of course, by the nightstand. Now, not so much, just because I'm just so busy like a bumblebee going here and there and everywhere. But I still love to read. And with an endless supply constantly churning out, I don't think I will ever catch up to my want to read list. So being a bookworm, I'd never liked that term. My son was the one who dubbed me Book Lioness, because he said, you don't read books, you devour them. So you're the Book Lioness. And that just kind of stuck. I used it through my email. I used it in games when I would play computer games, and it stuck. So that's where Book Lioness came from. So what brought me to tarot? I have been lucky enough as of 2018 to have circled the earth half a century. And wow, it just sounds like a long time, because it seemed like just yesterday I was 22 and had everything in front of me. But going back to what led me here would obviously touch base on my spiritual background. So as a child, I was raised in the Catholic environment, and I loved the ceremony of it. I loved, the incense. When you come in, you have to kneel, and you do the holy water, and just the ceremony of it. But I was so little at the time, I didn't understand half of what was going on, until I think I was 7, and my grandmother and mom brought me in for my first confession. And that was interesting, because as a child you really don't have anything to confess. So I remember going in there, and the priest asking me, well, have you told any lies? And I said, no. And have you stolen anything? And no. And finally he said, well, do your friends have anything that you would like? And I thought, well, sure, Susan Johnson across the street has a pony. I would love a pony. That'd be nice. And I think maybe he was just trying to teach a lesson. I'm not sure. But he said, well, this is called coveting what your neighbor has. So go out into the church and, say 3 Hail Marys. And I remember being a little confused, like, well, you kind of tricked me. And why am I having to, do a penance for something when you asked me? But I went out and I went to my grandmother and my mom, and I said, that man wants me to do penance. And of course my grandmother's horrified, because shh, you just go do it. And my mom was trying not to snicker on it, but all along those lines, I remember in Sunday school I would always ask questions. Who was Lilith, and who were the people that she went to, and just asking questions and getting looks of well, you don't question. And then as you do your first communion and reach your teenage years, you're taught so much guilt for just being who you are. I tend to stray away from that church. And of course I still have friends that are Catholics, and love them and totally respect them, and by no means mean to insult or challenge anyone's beliefs there, but it just wasn't for me. So fast forward a few years when I became a mother, and I've moved around a lot as a child and then again as an adult, and spent some time living in Utah, Salt Lake City, and in Idaho, and found the people of the Mormon Church to be kind of the same way, as far as well, you either belong to us or you're a sinner, and therefore you must be converted. And I just kind of felt, just live and let live, and if you don't want to be part of a religion, then be friends anyway. But it didn't really turn out that way. So the treatment of my children, where they were in Boy Scouts and they wouldn't earn the same medals because they weren't in the Sunday class to earn the badges, started making me think, well, maybe I need to find something where we can belong, my children and I. So I started reading books, and lots of them. And I started in the small circle of Christianity, just reading, Catholicism versus, when Martin Luther came and hammered his note on the door, and just branching out to all of the other Christian churches. But still, I felt that they had a lot of dogma for myself. So I started getting other books. I got brave and went to the library and got, this big stack of books on world religion, different religions from around the world. And I'm sure at the time I would have all these books open on the coffee table, that the boy's father would come and, see all these books coming home from work, but he didn't really say anything. He probably thought I was having some kind of weird life crisis. But I was just exploring. I was just, wanting to get questions answered and finding what sang to my soul. And I remember the first time I cracked open a book that had to do with something other than Christianity. I felt, you feel the guilt or the fear, that, wow, what if what I'm looking at is really taboo? But I got over it and started reading about the Baha'i faith, and they were also extremely interesting because they accepted all of the tenets of the major world religions and embraced them all, and talked about all of their holy books as having the same golden rule. And that, again, I felt tempted, but it had a lot of dogma as well. So when I started getting onto other religions like Buddhism, Taoism, and finally paganism, it felt like having my eyes kind of opened. In fact, I took out this book just to show you. This book here is a book that I highly recommend if you're, considering broadening your spiritual path. I'll put a link to find it in the description, but it will ask you questions on, what do you feel and how do you feel about this, and it's just wonderful. So that's kind of where I am. I'm a very spiritual person, and I try to accept any, person's religion as a friend. So hopefully I haven't offended any of you. That's just where I am in my background. So during the course of finding paganism, obviously I stumbled across tarot. And at first I thought it's very complicated. There's 78 cards. There's majors, there's minors, there's suits, there's court cards, there's, all the symbolism. And I started to learn it, and I actually would draw a daily card and journal about it, and come home and then, reflect on it. But I didn't really get it. I didn't get at that time that there was much more to it, so much depth to it. And of course, I understood right away it wasn't just a carnival trick where you want to try and seek out a fortune and that kind of thing. Going through events in my life, I went through a split up, and then had to kind of ground myself again and get back into my own happy cycle. And I kind of branched away from tarot at the time. I still collected. I still would do a daily draw, but I wasn't as in tuned to it. So I was in a book forum, how many years ago? 8 years ago, I'd say, and somebody mentioned tarot, and they were talking about it, and I kind of went, oh yeah, and I was talking about it as well, and something that they said about the High Priestess made me think, well, maybe I should relook, my studies into tarot, and from that moment on, I just started diving into it, books and YouTube videos, and just feeling the cards in my hands and understanding that it's an entire world. So fast forward to now, and I've gotten brave enough to do these videos and make some friends and really step out into the community. And here we are. Here's Book Lioness, and now hopefully a brief summary of how I got here. And if you've watched my other video, you know what I'm hoping to do. Tomorrow, the 4th, is supposed to be when the Tarot Pro is shipped, which I can't wait. That will hopefully be my first deck review. I recently saw Simon's video on how disappointed he was in his, I think it was tarot, illuminated tarot, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the Crow Tarot isn't a disappointment. It shouldn't be, but you never know, so we'll find out. It is September now, which is always to me a bittersweet month because it means summer is at an end, and we're now moving into the Burr months. They're going to start getting cold and winter's approaching, and but hopefully for September I'll also start my learning videos. We'll start with the Fool and work our way through. So again, thank you for your patience and for subscribing, and I look forward to your comments, and I look forward to if you want to do your own in response with anticipation. So have a great rest of the day and take care.